Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Hi, everyone, and happy Friday to you. And happy birthday to my middle son today. As you've seen, this week has been a pretty decent one for your 401ks, your 403bs, and more. The Dow closed down 66 points today, NASDAQ up for pretty much a flat day. Since the election, the stock market has been positive and up big Wednesday and Thursday as Vice President Joe Biden's potential win for the presidency grows closer. Earlier today, the market dipped slightly, but indices were mainly flat as the October jobs report was much better than expected, with 638,000 payrolls being added. So that's always good news, right? And unemployment dropping 1% to 6.9%. We're not behind. Pandemic's not behind us yet, but we'll take what we can get. Even with the ongoing global pandemic and reaching a new high of 121,888 cases in COVID here in the United States, Wall Street is on track for its best week since April. So that's good news. We'll take that for sure. And those of you watching, you might be also wondering about the labor market. So let's talk about that. The labor market was on much better footing in October than many economics expected, with 638,000 payrolls added and a full percentage point decline in the unemployment rate, that's 6.9%. But the real concern now is the post-election day chaos and a very much contested result where there is still no clear answer. And then many of you have been watching this just as I have been all over social media, legal concerns and whatnot. It's just kind of crazy. The stimulus, will it ever come? Well, today, as final 2020 election results are being counted still, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi both called for a coronavirus stimulus package, but no, huge surprise here. McConnell said the economy recovery that we just spoke about justifies a smaller aid bill. And Pelosi, again, rejected it. Again. Not too much surprise here. But you know what? Today's a really good day because today's Friday. And that means we're doing something very special. In fact, we're going to take a quick pivot because on November 17th, just 2 weeks from now, the Digital Marketing for Financial Services Summit 2020 will go live. And I've been invited to speak and participate. And today is a very special program because as a part of the Digital Marketing for Financial Services Summit, I'm excited to welcome the one and only Alex Sion, co-head of DX10X at City Ventures. Let me say again. I'm excited to welcome Alex Sion, co-head DX10 at City Ventures. Alex joined City Ventures in 2018. He is the global consumer banking lead for the D10X program, which incubates new products and businesses designed to generate new organic growth for City. Alex, it's so great to see you. How are you?
Hey, Winnie, glad to be on the show.
Well, you are just a total powerhouse because I'm going to continue here because prior to joining Citi, Alex was the general manager of mobile for JP Morgan Chase, responsible for Chase mobile banking and the mobile channel governance for the consumer and community banking group. And prior to JP Morgan, Alex co-founded Movin, the world's first mobile neobank, which I'm super excited to learn about. And for myself, I'm Winnie Sun, founder and managing partner of Sun Group Wealth Partners, CNBC Financial Advisor Council member, Forbes, CNBC, Good Day LA, Fox Business News, and Digital Trends contributor and host of this show, the TV show Level Up with Winnie Sun on NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, and Roku. So today, Alex, we're going to discuss harnessing crisis as a catalyst for leadership, digital transformation, and cultural growth. I'm really depending on you, Alex, because, I've been following your journey. You definitely are what we call, at the cutting edge of fintech, of financial technology advancements. So I'd love if you could start and just share with us about City Ventures D10X project, an internal incubation team, right? What's your team's mission?
Yeah, no, thanks, Winnie. Like as you mentioned, I would consider myself an OG in the fintech space, having kind of doing what I'm doing here at Citi, incubating new growth products and services for customers in the digital and mobile space, and having led Chase Mobile over at JP Morgan Chase. So at one point in time, you could have complained to me if you had problems with your Chase mobile banking app. And then prior to that, launched what was the first of the new kind of neobanks that are kind of taking over the fintech world globally, a company called Movin back in the day. So I've been watching kind of the transformation that's been going on within financial services and within banking caused by technology over the past couple of decades. And it's a pretty crazy and exciting time.
It is a crazy and exciting time, but it's great to see. And I just want to mention, like, Chase has one of the most robust apps. So obviously, great job there, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing. And just as a reminder for those of you who are watching with us, we are live streaming today on multiple channels on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch. Who am I missing? But anyway, all over social media, we are definitely monitoring your comments. So keep on sending them in. If you have questions for Alex, I want to welcome those as well, because Alex does quite a bit, and I think this is going to be meaningful for those of you who are watching the financial industry and wondering what disruption you have to look forward to. So Alex, you've done so much in your young life. You spent almost your entire career in the financial services sector. Before you joined Citi, you're head of mobile banking for JP Morgan, right? The world's first neobank. I'm curious, when you describe neobank, I'm sure people have asked you this, what is a neobank?
Yeah, neobank. Well, there's a couple of different banking models that are emerging around the world where companies are essentially launching apps. So there's no branches, there's no, no ATM. Well, you could use ATMs, but it's largely driven by mobile payments. But essentially, these companies are basically apps that you will download to your phone and open up accounts. And then often with those accounts come debit cards that you can use just like a bank account. But I think the main difference is that they're mobile only or mobile first banks, and they're growing like wildfire. In the US, the largest one is a company by the name of Chime, which now has over 5 million customers across the United States. And then there's a couple large ones over in the UK called, Monzo is a notable one that has, again, several million customers over in London. And these are the bank models that are popping up all over the world and growing like wildfire. For example, Chime with 5 million users would rival the size of what Citi is today, and from a global consumer standpoint, or from a U.S. consumer standpoint, and that kind of growth happened, over the span of say 5 years, whereas the Citi's been around for over 100.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the consumer's desire of banking has pivoted and changed so much, right? Like, I can't remember the last time I went into a bank and needed to go to a bank. And in fact, I find the process not a very efficient way, and it's much easier just to jump on the website or an app, go and send a message and get what you need done more efficiently. And certainly we've seen that with the next generation as well. Like you said, you mentioned Chime. There's a reason why the consumers' needs have changed. And, I think it's probably, Amazon started getting us very used to things happening instantaneously. So, innovation in financial services is quite very much so long overdue. What have been the biggest digital transformations that excite you? I mean, I'm sure you've seen much more than the average consumer, but what do you think we have to look forward to?
Yeah, I think the transformation of banking and the banking experience, and frankly, the money experience that has been by digital, particularly mobile and mobile payments, has been sort of the underlying kind of macro thing over the past couple of years. And that's only been accelerated and magnified to an extreme by the pandemic. So when you think about the digitization of banking just being on your phone and the ability to pay with your phone, all sorts of different banking experience and artifacts, start to come into question. Notably, the plastic card, right? So if you can think about a world where the plastic is no longer used, a huge factor in terms of not only the banking industry but payments in general. Just think about the implications of that, right? Like, how you shop, how you get credit, right? All sorts of things change when you take out these physical artifacts. So I do think that the nature of the digitization of money and commerce has a direct impact on the banking experience, which is only starting right now, to get going, even though it feels like it's been around for a long time. The implications of the digitization of money in banking are pretty profound.
Absolutely. I mean, Alex, I think especially right now that we're going through this pandemic with COVID, I mean, I can't remember last time I used cash. And I've been talking to a lot of our clients recently, asking them the same thing. You know, one of the benefits of you mentioning using plastic and now digital payments and more so sort of even touchless transactions, right? That seems to be a big trend, and certainly one that I think has actually helped the next generation and our current clients better manage their money, better manage their spending, really get a sense of where their budget looks like. When you look at this currently with COVID and whatnot, what are some trends that you think will continue with in the financial industry? Do you think we'll go beyond plastic? Do you think that at some point we're no longer going to be holding that? Like I know in Asia, right, most people just use their phone. They don't actually have to carry a whole stack of credit cards. You get heavy.
No, absolutely. I mean, and just this week, right, the anti-IPO, the pulling of it and sort of the excitement leading up to it in China was a notable kind of milestone within the evolution of the industry. But to kind of answer your question on the trends, I think that are going to be permanent post-COVID, well, definitely the digitization, right, of both banking and kind of the payments industry has just only accelerated. To your point, people have become, learned how to do things digitally, like, order online, e-commerce has accelerated the usage. The people are using cash less, right, and tapping their phones more. So that I think has just been going to be a permanent fixture in the U.S. and around the world. That was already a trend, but has just kind of just vaulted to the forefront in the pandemic. The other thing that you mentioned, which is with the digitization of money, comes the opportunity to layer intelligence on top of it, right? The ability to kind of be in touch with your money and your spending like you never have been before, because you kind of like, once you tap your mobile phone, you know what your balance is, you know what you've done. You have that kind of immediate implication, and you can get that feedback in the digital channel that you couldn't have gotten like via a card or writing a check. So what that's done is it's created a tremendous demand for consumers for that kind of insight. And there's just been an explosion over this period, particularly in the pandemic, of apps and websites and digital experiences that will help consumers more smartly manage their finances. And so I think you've seen a lot of kind of companies in this space that really are helping consumers digitally keep track of their money and spend and save more smartly has really exploded during the pandemic. And I think you'll notably see it, but all the kind of digital commerce providers like Visa, MasterCard, Square, PayPal have done extremely well through the pandemic, not only from a pure business standpoint, but from their valuation standpoint. So I do think that the power of these kind of financial technology players and these kind of new kinds of firms, that's going to be another, permanent change or meaningful and continuing change within the banking space.
Yeah, I think that's really promising, Alex, because number one, obviously, it's a great way to track all your spending. It's much more difficult to have to keep receipts and type in what you spent your cash in. But if you put things on your credit card, or you mentioned like digital payments like PayPal and Venmo, whatever, there's record of that spend. You know exactly what's leaving your bank account each and every month. And I can think from a business standpoint, this is great business because you now can see what your consumer is spending on and their buying patterns, right? You can plan for things and services and other things in the future that you might be able to cross-sell and bring benefits to that financial customer. In fact, Get Ahead, who is joining us from Periscope, says it's said that you actually spend more when you don't use cash. And Alex, I would agree with that. I think the ease of being able to spend can certainly cause some consumers to spend more. So perhaps this is a cultural shift, but I do see like even my own children, I know you have little ones too, Alex. I mean, I don't think my kids see me pull out cash almost ever.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. I think I like the fact that I can record my spend. I also like to earn points and miles on my spend. So, and my accountant certainly appreciates it too. Do you think that's going to continue? Like you mentioned that's certainly something that we've gotten used to. What's sort of the next phase? Because one of the concerns I have, Alex, is that this obviously works well for us and the next generation. But what about our seniors? Are they going to be able to utilize this, or are we going to get more phone calls saying, "Oh, it's not working now. I can't even spend my money"?
Sure. No, it's a great question and a good concern to have. I think though in general, the digitization of money and banking is a net good thing, right? It what it does is it allows that value added services piece to be layered on top of banking, which was essentially just very transactional prior to this kind of extreme digitization via mobile banking and mobile payments. So to your listeners' comment, yeah, there's that old adage that if you use cash, it's much more tangible, right? And so then you have a more of a discipline when you actually have to pull out your wallet and you use cash so you spend left, whereas swiping a card, right, you can do kind of super easily and maybe even mindlessly. And then the same thing with regard to just clicking with regard to e-commerce and just the ability to just tap and pay mindlessly. But I think what you see a lot of happening is that these services, right, with this kind of interaction, now we have the opportunity within the banking space and within financial services to kind of help customers, right, through the digital channels make smarter decisions and be able to to get insight on their habits in near real time with the ability to access that information on your mobile phone. So I do think that digitization, while it could help people kind of lose track of their spending, it's actually the opposite. Like you'll get more on top of your spending, and the ability for financial services firms to innovate on that engagement model becomes pretty huge. And with regard to your question on the seniors, I think that's what's going to compel them to get into the game as well. Like, not only have they shown that during the pandemic, my father, who just turned 80 last week, he's a whiz, right, on all the technology these days. And so he's already starting to manage his money, order food, all these kind of services on digital. So I don't think it, in some ways, it'll help all seniors as well.
Yes, that's good to know. That's good to know. I think that's really, really important. And I will say that going through this pandemic and having this transparency, if you will, one thing, believe it or not, for those of you who are watching and you're worried about spending more because you're on your credit card, you're using credit cards versus traditional cash, I think one thing has proven that to be not the case. For those of you who have adopted like curbside shopping, right? For example, you're ordering at home. You're making sure you have time to plan out your budget, maybe your shopping list, instead of just mindlessly going into a traditional store and doing impulse shopping. By shopping at home, you can cross-reference your refrigerator, your freezer, making sure you only buy what you need. I think that will give you an idea of culturally we can handle. And what Alex said too, with that information, financial services, advisors like myself can go in and take a look and maybe even quickly be able to guide you and give you some tips. I think a lot of this is going to come from technology and AI and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure Alex and his team will figure this out. Really, really optimistic here, Alex. Yeah. This sounds great, but this is good because I do think our financial industry as a whole has been behind. One thing I love to talk to you about too is I know you run a cross-functional team that operates internationally, right? So is working from home like a normal for you, or is it a new normal? Because I know you're at the office today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how leaders can keep up with the momentum to motivate their teams, especially since a lot of us have teams all over that are remote now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, so it's a great question. My boss, the chief innovation officer for Citi, has a saying that everybody is the same size on a Zoom screen, and I think that's actually helped our culture because even though we've all got Zoom fatigue of being on calls all day, it levels the playing field. So I found that not only during the pandemic were my staff able to adopt to the new technology relatively very quickly, but it kind of opened up the dialogue, right? Even though people kind of on Zoom. It's a great way for people to connect. And they've been able to kind of stay in touch with each other and continue the collaboration via the digital channels. The only downside I'd say is really what we see, especially in the venture and kind of the incubation business, it's those creative collisions, right? That can only happen in the office, really, like where you're kind of walking down the hallway, you've got an idea, you can just tap a colleague on the shoulder and start to brainstorm, against a whiteboard. That's been difficult to replicate kind of in the digital, kind of Zoom fatigue era. But I do think we've managed through the pandemic quite well, despite the circumstances.
I know. A good friend of mine, actually, Paul Hari, told me this, Alex, is that, what we really miss more than anything of not being in the office is many of us have our really good friends, our best friends, some of us, in the office, and they miss that more than anything. So I guess, like you said, we're all the same size on screen. So we just got to figure out a way to make this work, just like our kids have to.
Absolutely.
Another question, I think the last question I have for you, Alex, is, if you had one piece of advice, because there's a lot of fellow leaders out here looking to start an innovation team inside their company, at their industry right now, what would the advice be? I mean, you've done this time and time and again. Where do you start? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's one now is a better time than ever. I mean, the advancements in technology have made it so easy to develop new products and services that can very quickly get out to end consumers. So the barriers to kind of beginning and creating new ventures have been extremely lowered, in this kind of new digital age. And not only that, not only the ability to kind of launch products and services, but the ability to iterate on them very quickly and kind of achieve product market fit, right? So like you can constantly experiment with new ideas and evolve products to the point where you kind of find the right markets over time. And in many ways, that's what we do, at City Ventures in the incubation side is really kind of have this discipline of exploring new value propositions and new ideas from clients, leveraging the most that we can out of digital to basically be able to rapidly find product market fit. So I do think if you're someone out there with a new idea and you want to kind of start a venture, I'd say this is the time to go for it, right? This is the time to really kind of use that creative energy and leverage digital to the maximum to be able to see whether or not there's a there. And then if there is a there, if you find that product market fit, the venture community is pretty sophisticated these days, even though there's a little bit of a bump going on in the pandemic. But I still think the appetite for kind of new ideas and new products and services in the world, particularly post-COVID and the pandemic, is just going to increase.
Amazing. So as you heard, Alex said, utilize digital to your maximum. See what the potential is for your idea. And oftentimes, Alex, I'm sure you would agree, it's in times of stress and difficult times like this that the best opportunities come out, right? The best company ideas come out. And those who decide to really hunker down and work really hard and push through can actually create some magic. And I'm just guessing, Alex, in your mind, you're actually probably creating some pretty awesome stuff right now. If only we knew.
Yeah. We've got a lot cooking.
You got a lot
coming to a theater or a bank near you or a phone near you one of these days.
I know. And I'm sure it's a better idea than putting banks and post offices, right, Alex? And then I heard it, that's what the government is saying. They're thinking about putting banks in post offices. So that's why I'm joking here. But you know what? We're definitely, before we get here, I just want to say, Alex, amazing conversation. I would love to have you back to continue to share with us some of the developments. But you know what? I feel like it's time for a little speed round. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Someone with so much financial magnitude information. We got to get them on speed round. So we're going to start. 3 questions. Alex, you ready?
Yep.
All right. First question is, what is one thing the next generation wants more of from the financial industry, Alex?
Help. I think help. Exactly. I think like, just as I was mentioning before, this generation is natively digital. and they use digital to solve all problems. But money problems, they're different. They've been solved with pen and paper in the past. So I do think that the next generation is demanding of banking products and financial services that will actually help them become better, right? Help them become much more financially well. And you're seeing that in the apps that they gravitate towards, the services that they're using. They're seeking help, money help.
I love that. Financial empowerment and help. If you're watching from the financial industry, great taking note. I'm definitely taking note. All right, second question, Alex. If you were to write a book, the subject matter would be about?
Innovation and sort of disruption. I find it fascinating to watch kind of the cycles of history of disruption throughout other industries and what players rose and what players fell and why. So, and I do think that there's predictable patterns, and that cycle of disruption is only accelerating and getting more acute and larger as it goes from industry to industry. And now that it's kind of hitting banking and financial services, it's a particular huge academic interest of mine to kind of watch these patterns of disruption and what can large banks do like Citi.
Well, I don't know, Alex, I'm going to tell you, I would buy your book. I want to see your book on innovation for sure. All right, last question, Alex. What leadership quality do you value most?
Courage, because I think they're synonymous. I think it's difficult to think about leaders without courage, whether that be quiet courage or very kind of public and visible courage. But I think courage to me is the backbone of leadership, the ability to kind of not be afraid to think bold thoughts and not be afraid to kind of take action when you see something wrong in the world. And that always takes courage. So to me, that's the key characteristic.
That's the key characteristic for sure. So those of you who are interested in learning more about Alex Sion, definitely a leader in this space. Alex, how can they follow you? How can they learn more about you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm at Twitter at asion1. But yeah, you can just look for me in the news articles and various speaking events across the banking industry.
Amazing, amazing. And thank you so much for making the time and joining us today, Alex. It's been a true delight getting to know you and learning more about sort of taking a backseat approach and learning more of what's ahead for us here in the financial industry. And I want to say a special thank you to my friends at the Digital Marketing for Financial Services Summit that's happening here on November 17th. Amazing event and so many incredible speakers. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a beautiful Friday. And of course, stay in touch, stay safe, and do me a favor. If you have any other financial questions or questions for Alex, let us know. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Take care now.